When Steven Spielberg stepped onto Martha's Vineyard in 1974, he had no idea he was about to create cinema history through what would become the most disastrous film production of the decade. What audiences witnessed in theaters the following summer was a masterpiece of suspense that launched the era of summer blockbusters and changed Hollywood forever. But behind those terrifying shark attacks and iconic moments lay secrets so shocking they'd make even Bruce the mechanical shark's jaw drop. The 27-year-old director thought he was making a simple monster movie based on Peter Benchley's best-selling novel. Universal Studios expected a straightforward creature feature that could be shot quickly and cheaply on their backlot water tanks. Instead, Spielberg found himself battling mechanical nightmares, explosive budgets, and cast members who genuinely feared for their lives during the most chaotic production in film history. The film that would eventually gross over $400 million worldwide almost never made it to theaters. Every single day brought new disasters that threatened to sink the entire production. Weather delays, equipment failures, and a mechanical shark that spent more time broken than working turned what should have been a routine 55-day shoot into a grueling 159-day marathon. What you're about to discover goes far beyond the surface of this legendary thriller. These aren't just casual behind-the-scenes tidbits, they're the jaw-dropping secrets that reveal how chaos, creativity, and pure luck transformed potential catastrophe into cinematic gold. The centerpiece of Jaws was supposed to be a magnificent mechanical shark that would terrorize audiences with its realistic movements. Instead, Bruce became the production's biggest headache and nearly destroyed the entire film. Named after Steven Spielberg's lawyer, Bruce Raymer, this 25-foot, 1,200-pound mechanical monster was custom-built by production designer Joe Alves to be the star of the show. The animatronic shark malfunctioned constantly due to saltwater corroding its electrical systems and damaging the pneumatic mechanisms that controlled its movements. Crews spent countless exhausting hours retrieving Bruce from the ocean floor after yet another catastrophic breakdown. The saltwater environment that Spielberg insisted upon for authenticity proved to be the mechanical shark's worst enemy. The pneumatic systems failed so frequently that Spielberg privately began calling the mechanical fish the Great White Turd whenever it refused to cooperate with the increasingly frustrated production team. What was supposed to be a straightforward monster movie became a daily battle against technology that simply wasn't ready for the harsh realities of ocean filming. The special effects team had never attempted to operate such complex machinery in saltwater for extended periods. Each malfunction required extensive repairs that could take hours or even days to complete. The production costs mounted as the crew waited for Bruce to be functional again, while the studio executives in Los Angeles grew increasingly concerned about the ballooning budget. But Bruce's constant failures led to one of cinema's most brilliant creative decisions. Instead of showing the shark early, and often as originally planned in the script, Spielberg was forced to hide the mechanical monster until 81 minutes into the film. This accident of technological necessity created unprecedented suspense that wouldn't have been possible with a perfectly functioning mechanical shark. Audiences' imaginations filled in what the malfunctioning machinery couldn't deliver, making their terror far more intense than any mechanical effects could have achieved. During a casual visit to the set, George Lucas, flush with excitement from his recent success with American Graffiti, playfully stuck his head inside the mechanical shark's mouth and got completely stuck. The future creator of Star Wars found himself trapped inside the jaws of the beast while cast and crew members worked frantically to free him without damaging either Lucas or the expensive mechanical shark. This embarrassing incident became legendary among the production team, though Lucas himself rarely discusses it in interviews. Meanwhile, when the original prop arm being pulled from the shark's mouth during the tiger shark autopsy scene looked ridiculously fake and unconvincing, the production team made a desperate decision. They buried a real female crew member in the sand with only her arm exposed, creating one of the film's most genuinely disturbing practical effects. This unnamed crew member's sacrifice for the sake of realism demonstrates the lengths to which the production team went to maintain authenticity despite constant technical difficulties. Before Steven Spielberg ever set foot on Martha's Vineyard, the film nearly had a completely different director with an entirely different vision. Dick Richards was originally hired to helm Jaws based on his work on previous action films, but studio executives fired him for one seemingly bizarre reason. He kept referring to the great white shark as a whale during development meetings. This wasn't just a casual slip of the tongue, but a repeated mistake that revealed Richards fundamentally misunderstood what creature he was supposed to be filming. His confusion about the basic premise opened the door for 27-year-old Spielberg to take over the project. Spielberg's relative inexperience in feature filmmaking would prove to be both challenging and ultimately beneficial for the production. His bold decision to shoot the first major motion picture entirely on the ocean was innovative and visually striking, but nearly catastrophic from a practical standpoint. Previous monster movies had used controlled water tanks on studio backlots or filmed in calm lakes and rivers. Spielberg insisted on authentic ocean footage that would give audiences a visceral sense of being in genuine shark territory. This choice created most of the production's endless problems, but also gave Jaws its unique, realistic atmosphere that audiences had never experienced before in a Hollywood film. Roy Scheider landed the lead role of Chief Brody through pure chance and clever eavesdropping at a Hollywood party. While mingling with other actors and industry professionals, he overheard Spielberg discussing the Jaws project with potential collaborators. Scheider's natural charm and immediate enthusiasm for the role impressed the young director, who was looking for actors who could bring authenticity to what could easily become a ridiculous monster movie. Scheider's casting proved to be one of the production's smartest decisions, as his everyman quality made Chief Brody relatable to audiences nationwide. But Scheider's greatest contribution to film history wasn't written in any script or planned by the screenwriters. The movie's most quoted line, "You're gonna need a bigger boat," was completely improvised by Scheider during his first encounter with the full-scale mechanical shark. When he first saw Bruce during filming, his genuine reaction of shock and disbelief produced this iconic piece of dialogue that perfectly captured both his character's working-class pragmatism and the audience's feelings about the massive threat they were witnessing. The line has since become one of the most referenced quotes in popular culture, appearing in everything from political speeches to business presentations. Not all improvisation during the production was verbal. One of the film's most touching and humanizing moments happened completely by accident between scheduled takes. Roy Scheider and Jay Mello, who played his son Sean Brody, began making silly faces at each other during a break in filming. Their natural father-son chemistry was so genuine and endearing that Spielberg immediately noticed their interaction and ordered cameras to roll again. This unplanned moment of authentic affection between the actors became one of the film's most emotionally resonant scenes, adding crucial depth that wasn't present in the original screenplay. Robert Shaw's legendary Indianapolis speech, which many consider one of the greatest monologues in film history, was largely improvised by the veteran actor. While the basic historical facts about the USS Indianapolis disaster were in the script, Shaw expanded and embellished the story with his own research and dramatic instincts. His haunting delivery of this tragic true story about sailors being attacked by sharks after their ship was torpedoed added gravitas and emotional weight that elevated Jaws far beyond its origins as a simple creature feature. Shaw performed this 3.5-minute monologue in a single take, creating one of cinema's most powerful moments. What was initially supposed to be a manageable 55-day shoot stretched into an expensive 159 days of constant crisis management. The film's budget exploded from $3.5 million to over $9 million as delays mounted. Cast and crew members were getting seasick daily, physically exhausted from constant stress, and increasingly frustrated with endless technical problems. The ocean environment was far more challenging than anticipated. Equipment that worked perfectly in controlled studio conditions failed repeatedly when exposed to saltwater, wind, and constant motion of boats and floating platforms. The opening attack scene featuring actress Susan Backlini took 3 full days to complete, with each day bringing new complications and physical demands. Backlini had to endure being pulled back and forth through the cold Atlantic water by cables attached to her legs, creating the violent jerking motions that effectively simulated a shark attack. The brutal physicality of this scene was entirely real. Backlini was actually being yanked through the ocean by crew members operating the cable system, making her terrified reactions completely genuine and convincing to audiences worldwide. Steven Spielberg's mounting frustration became so intense that he considered abandoning the project multiple times. The young director was convinced his career was over, imagining that no studio would hire him again after the Jaws disaster. Cast members later revealed they genuinely feared the desperate crew might throw Spielberg into the ocean if problems continued much longer. The director's desire to escape the chaos became so overwhelming that he didn't even remain on location to film the movie's climactic explosion scene. Spielberg had already fled back to the relative safety of Los Angeles, leaving this crucial final moment to be shot by the remaining crew members. This abandonment of the production during its most important scene demonstrates just how traumatic the entire filming experience had become for everyone involved. Assistant director Joe Alves had to step in and direct the final explosive confrontation between Brody and the shark. Adding to the logistical nightmare, the real shark used in several terrifying close-up shots created its own set of expensive complications. The production team successfully caught a genuine great white shark in Florida waters and had the massive predator flown to Martha's Vineyard in a specially chartered private jet packed with tons of ice to preserve the specimen. This extremely expensive and complicated process was absolutely necessary because the mechanical shark looked convincing only in carefully controlled wide shots, while genuinely terrifying close-ups of rows of razor-sharp teeth required nothing less than the authentic article. John Williams created one of cinema's most instantly recognizable and psychologically terrifying musical themes. But Steven Spielberg initially thought the legendary composer was playing an elaborate practical joke on him during their first meeting. When Williams sat down at his piano and played the deceptively simple two-note theme, dun 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 dun, Spielberg burst into laughter and waited for the real composition to begin. The director had expected something far more complex, orchestral, and traditionally dramatic for such an important film score. Williams had to patiently convince the skeptical director that the theme's deliberate simplicity was exactly what made it so psychologically effective and menacing. The composer explained that the repetitive, heartbeat-like rhythm would subconsciously trigger primal fear responses in audiences, warning them of approaching danger even when no shark was visible on screen. This minimalist approach to horror scoring was revolutionary and influenced countless composers in subsequent thriller and horror films. The theme was recorded with a 73-piece orchestra and has since become synonymous with approaching danger in popular culture. The famous dolly zoom shot of Chief Brody sitting on the crowded beach wasn't Spielberg's original creation. He deliberately borrowed it from Alfred Hitchcock's psychological thriller Vertigo. This sophisticated camera technique, which creates a disorienting effect by simultaneously zooming in while pulling the camera backward, was invented by Hitchcock's innovative camera operator, Erman Roberts, for a crucial scene in Vertigo. Spielberg adapted the technique so effectively for the shark attack sequence that film scholars now commonly refer to it as the Jaws shot, even though Hitchcock had used the identical technique 17 years earlier. One of the film's most effective and memorable jump scares wasn't even filmed on the Martha's Vineyard location. The genuinely terrifying moment when Ben Gardner's severed head pops unexpectedly out of the sunken boat hull was shot entirely in film editor Verna Field's modest backyard swimming pool in Encino, California. Fields generously allowed her home to be transformed into a makeshift film set, filling her residential pool with milk to make the water appear murky and ocean-like for the cameras. This improvised backyard production became one of the film's most talked about scenes, with the entire crew cramming around Fields' suburban swimming pool to create this memorable shock moment. The scene was a last-minute addition during post-production when Spielberg decided the film needed one more major scare to maintain audience tension. This decision to add extra horror elements during editing demonstrates the director's growing understanding of suspense filmmaking. Field's expert editing throughout the film was instrumental in maintaining the movie's relentless pace and earned her an Academy Award for Best Film Editing. Even the movie's promotional materials and marketing campaign contained significant hidden secrets that most audiences never noticed. The iconic Jaws movie poster features a massive great white shark swimming menacingly toward an unsuspecting female swimmer, but the shark depicted in the artwork is actually a mako shark rather than a great white. The artist commissioned to create this legendary poster used the wrong shark species as reference material, but by the time anyone in the production noticed this taxonomical error, the image had already become so iconic and recognizable that changing it would have been commercially impossible. Sharp-eyed viewers who pay attention to small details have discovered numerous Easter eggs hidden throughout Jaws that connect it to other films. The license plate pulled from the tiger shark's stomach, 0070981, wasn't just a random prop created by the art department. This same license plate number appears as a deliberate Easter egg in several other films, creating a small but dedicated following of viewers who hunt for this recurring detail in various movies. The number has become a sort of secret handshake among film buffs and prop masters. Many of the terrified beachgoers running frantically from the water during the panic scenes weren't displaying genuine terror at all. They were actually smiling and laughing despite their supposed fear. If you watch these chaotic crowd scenes carefully, you can spot numerous extras who are clearly enjoying themselves rather than expressing authentic panic about a shark attack. The production couldn't afford to reshoot these expensive crowd scenes with hundreds of extras, so these moments of barely concealed amusement made it into the final film, creating an unintentional layer of dark comedy. Jeffrey Voorhees, who played the tragic Alex Kintner in what became one of the film's most heartbreaking scenes, created his own tribute to the movie decades later. As an adult, Voorhees owned a restaurant on Martha's Vineyard where he proudly served Alex Kintner shark sandwiches on his menu. When actress Lee Fierro, who played his grieving mother in the film's most emotional scene, visited the restaurant years later and mentioned her connection to Jaws, Voorhees emerged from the kitchen to reveal his identity. This touching reunion between the fictional mother and son became a beloved story among Jaws fans and demonstrated the lasting bonds created during the production. The film's massive success created ripple effects that extended far beyond impressive box office numbers. Jaws didn't just spawn 3 increasingly ridiculous sequels, it fundamentally changed how Hollywood approached summer releases and audience expectations. Before Jaws, summer was considered a dead zone for major films because studio executives believed audiences preferred to be outdoors rather than sitting in movie theaters during the nicest weather of the year. The film's unprecedented success proved that the right movie could draw huge crowds regardless of season, creating the concept of the summer blockbuster that still dominates Hollywood strategy today. Director Alfred Hitchcock was so genuinely impressed with Jaws and its masterful use of suspense that he personally insisted theaters enforce a strict, no late admissions policy during screenings. The master of suspense believed the film's carefully constructed tension and expertly timed scares would be completely ruined if audience members arrived during the middle of scenes and missed crucial setup moments. This unusual requirement demonstrated how even legendary filmmakers recognized that Jaws represented something special and revolutionary in cinema history. The success of Jaws created cultural consequences that Steven Spielberg later deeply regretted and actively worked to counteract. The film's terrifying portrayal of sharks as mindless killing machines led to widespread panic about shark attacks that was completely disproportionate to the actual statistical risks. This fear caused measurable drops in beach attendance during the summer of 1975, with some coastal communities reporting significant losses in tourism revenue. Even more troubling, the film inspired massive shark hunting expeditions as fishermen organized tournaments to eliminate the ocean's apex predators, believing they were performing a public service. Peter Benchley, who wrote both the original novel and co-wrote the screenplay, eventually became a passionate shark conservationist, partly due to guilt over his creation's negative impact on public perception. He spent his later years traveling the world to educate people about the crucial importance of sharks in maintaining healthy ocean ecosystems. Benchley frequently stated in interviews that if he had known the real science about shark behavior when he wrote the book, he never would have created such an unrealistic and damaging portrayal of these magnificent predators. The film's influence on other movies was immediate, lasting, and mostly unsuccessful. Countless filmmakers tried to replicate Jaws' box office success with their own monster movies, leading to a wave of creature features throughout the late 1970s and 1980s. Most of these imitators completely missed the point of what made Jaws effective, focusing on showing their monsters as much as possible rather than understanding that the original film's power came from what audiences couldn't see and had to imagine for themselves. The movie poster itself became a cultural icon that transcended film marketing and entered the realm of genuine art. The image of a massive shark rising toward an unsuspecting swimmer has been parodied, referenced, and imitated countless times across all forms of media. From comedy sketches to serious documentaries about ocean conservation, this single powerful image continues to represent the primal fear of unknown dangers lurking beneath peaceful surfaces. The poster's composition and visual impact influenced decades of movie marketing and remains instantly recognizable to audiences worldwide. These 24 secrets reveal how Steven Spielberg's worst filmmaking experience accidentally created his greatest triumph and changed cinema forever. Every disaster that threatened to sink the production, the malfunctioning shark, the exploding budget, the endless delays, the hostile ocean conditions, forced creative solutions that elevated Jaws far above its original conception as a simple summer monster movie. The next time you watch Chief Brody's family making faces at the dinner table, listen to Quint's haunting Indianapolis speech, or jump when that severed head appears unexpectedly, remember that none of these iconic moments were supposed to happen according to the original script. They emerged from disaster, desperation, and the kind of pure creative energy that can only come from a production teetering constantly on the edge of complete collapse. Jaws proved definitively that sometimes the very best art comes from the worst possible circumstances. The film that nearly destroyed Steven Spielberg's career instead launched him toward legendary status, created the modern blockbuster template that dominates Hollywood today, and gave audiences one of cinema's most enduring masterpieces. The Mechanical Shark may have been a complete disaster, but the movie it accidentally inspired remains absolutely perfect.